The sound of Anne's heels clicking against the hardwood floor sent a shiver down my spine. I took a deep breath, plastered on a smile, and turned to face my mother-in-law as she strode into our living room like she owned the place. "Laura, darling," Anne cooed, air-kissing my cheeks. "The apartment looks quaint. I suppose you've done the best you can with what you have." I bit my tongue, reminding myself that this was a gift from my parents. "Thank you, Anne. We're quite happy here." Ethan emerged from the bedroom, our 3-year-old son Riley perched on his hip. "Mom, you're early. We weren't expecting you for another hour." Anne waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, you know me. I couldn't wait to see my boys." She reached for Riley, who buried his face in Ethan's shoulder. "Come on, champ," Ethan said, prying Riley loose. "Say hello to Grandma." I watched as Anne smothered Riley with kisses, leaving lipstick marks on his chubby cheeks. The poor kid looked like he wanted to crawl out of his skin. "So," Anne said, setting Riley down and turning her attention back to me, "when are you two planning on giving me another grandchild? This place is certainly big enough for another little one." I forced a laugh. "Oh, Anne, we're not quite ready for that yet. Riley keeps us plenty busy." Anne's eyes narrowed. "Nonsense. You're not getting any younger, dear, and Ethan always wanted a big family, didn't you, sweetheart?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, we've talked about this. Lara and I will decide when we're ready for more kids." "I'm just saying," Anne persisted. "You don't want to wait too long. You know what they say about geriatric pregnancies." I felt my cheeks flush with anger and embarrassment. Before I could respond, Riley tugged on my pant leg. "Mama hungry." Grateful for the distraction, I scooped him up. "Let's get you a snack, buddy. Ethan, why don't you show your mother around?" As I escaped to the kitchen, I heard Anne's voice trailing behind me. "Really, Ethan, you should consider moving to a house in our neighborhood. It would be so much better for the children." I gripped the counter, trying to steady my nerves. This was supposed to be a quick visit, but I had a sinking feeling it was just the beginning. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked, appearing in the doorway. I forced a smile. "Fine. Just getting Riley his snack." Ethan lowered his voice. "Look, I know my mom can be a bit much, but she means well. Can you just try to get along? For me?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Ethan gave me a quick peck on the cheek before returning to the living room. As I cut up an apple for Riley, I could hear Anne's voice growing louder. "Really, Ethan, I don't know why you insist on staying in this shoebox. Your father and I have plenty of room at our place. You could save so much money living with us." I froze, the knife hovering over the cutting board. This was new. Anne had never outright suggested we move in with them before. "Mom," Ethan said, his voice strained, "we're happy here, end of discussion." I peeked around the corner to see Anne's face twist into a pout. "I'm only thinking of what's best for my family. Is that so wrong?" The tension in the room was palpable. I cleared my throat, desperate to change the subject. "Who's ready for that tour?" As we moved from room to room, Anne's criticisms flowed freely. The paint colors were too dark, the furniture too modern, the artwork not nearly sophisticated enough. With each comment, I felt my resolve weakening. By the time Anne finally left, promising to return soon for a longer visit, I was exhausted. I collapsed onto the couch, Riley curling up beside me. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "That wasn't so bad, was it?" I stared at him incredulously. "Are you serious? She practically invited herself to move in with us." "She's just lonely since Dad's been sick," Ethan said defensively. "We should make more of an effort to include her." As Ethan's words sank in, a chill ran down my spine. Something told me this was just the beginning of a much bigger problem. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. I fumbled for it in the dark, my heart racing as I saw Anne's name on the screen. "Lara? It's Brian. He's in the hospital." I sat up, instantly alert. "What happened?" "A stroke," Anne's voice cracked. "They don't know. I need you and Ethan here. Now." Within the hour, we were at the hospital. Riley left with a neighbor. The harsh fluorescent lights made Anne look older, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. "Oh, thank God you're here," she said, pulling Ethan into a tight embrace. I stood awkwardly to the side, unsure of my place in this family crisis. As we waited for news, Anne's composure crumbled. "I don't know what I'll do if—" She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. Despite our differences, I found myself reaching out to squeeze her hand. "He's strong, Anne. He'll pull through. The doctor finally emerged, his face grave. Mr. Thompson is stable, but he's suffered significant damage. He'll need round-the-clock care for the foreseeable future. Anne's grip on my hand tightened. Of course, we'll hire the best nurses, whatever it takes. The doctor shook his head. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Mr. Thompson will need a level of care that's difficult to provide at home. I'd recommend a long-term care facility. Absolutely not. Anne interrupted. My husband is coming home with me, and that's final. As the doctor tried to reason with her, I saw the wheels turning in Anne's mind. I knew what was coming before she even opened her mouth. Laura, dear, she said, turning to me with a sickeningly sweet smile. You're not working right now, are you? Surely you could help me care for Brian. It would mean so much to have family around during this difficult time. I felt Ethan stiffen beside me. Mom, we can't just uproot our lives. Can't we? Anne's voice took on a sharp edge. After everything your father and I have done for you, that apartment you're living in rent-free, the least you could do is help when we need you most. I watched the conflict play out on Ethan's face. I knew he felt indebted to his parents, but this was asking too much. We'll figure something out, I said, trying to diffuse the tension. But moving in isn't. I think it's a great idea. Ethan interrupted. I stared at him in disbelief. What? Think about it, Laura. We'd be saving money. Riley would get to spend more time with his grandparents. It makes sense. I felt like I was drowning, my carefully constructed life crumbling around me. Ethan, can we talk about this in private? We stepped into the hallway, leaving Anne to fuss over Brian's unconscious form. Have you lost your mind? I hissed. We can't move in with your parents. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a sure sign he was stressed. It's temporary, Lara, just until Dad's back on his feet. And how long will that be? Months, years. What about our life, our home? This is family, Ethan said, his voice hardening. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices. I felt a surge of anger. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who will be playing nurse and housekeeper to your mother all day. Is that really all you care about? Your comfort? Ethan's eyes flashed with disappointment. I thought you were better than that, Lara. His words stung, but before I could respond, Anne appeared in the doorway. Is everything all right? She asked, her eyes darting between us. Ethan straightened his shoulders. Everything's fine, Mom. We'd be happy to move in and help out. Anne's face lit up with triumph. Oh, I knew I could count on you both. We'll get started on the arrangements right away. As Anne launched into plans for our move, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me, trapped, powerless, and utterly alone. I stared at the boxes piled high in Anne and Brian's guest room, our entire life condensed into cardboard containers. The weight of our decision pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. Lara, where did you put Riley's favorite blanket? Ethan called from downstairs. I sighed, digging through a nearby box. Coming. As I descended the stairs, I caught sight of Anne hovering over Brian in his hospital bed, now set up in the living room. Her saccharine voice grated on my nerves. Oh, Brian, darling, isn't it wonderful having the whole family under one roof? I bit my tongue, handing the blanket to Ethan without a word. He barely glanced at me, too preoccupied with setting up Riley's play area. Lara, Anne chirped, be a dear and fetch Brian's medication, would you? It's time for his next dose. I nodded, retreating to the kitchen. As I sorted through the pill bottles, I heard the doorbell ring. I'll get it, I called, grateful for any excuse to escape. I opened the door to find a woman about my age, holding a casserole dish. Hi there. I'm Jenna, your next-door neighbor. I thought I'd bring over a welcome dish. Relief washed over me at the sight of a friendly face. That's so kind of you. I'm Lara. Would you like to come in for a cup of coffee? Before Jenna could respond, Anne appeared behind me. Who's this, Lara? I introduced Jenna, watching Anne's eyes narrow as she sized up our new neighbor. How lovely, Anne said, her tone anything but. I'm sure Lara would love to chat, but we're quite busy settling in. Perhaps another time? I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Actually, Lara, Ethan interrupted. Mom needs help with Dad's physical therapy. Can you come here? Jenna gave me a sympathetic smile. No worries. We'll catch up soon, okay? As I closed the door, I felt the last of my freedom slipping away. The days blurred together, a monotonous cycle of caring for Brian, catering to Anne's demands, and trying to keep Riley entertained. Ethan grew more distant, spending long hours at work and barely acknowledging me when he was home. One afternoon, while Anne was napping and Brian was stable, I snuck out to the backyard. I needed air, space, anything to clear my head. "Sst, Lara!" I turned to see Jenna waving from over the fence. "Hey, neighbor. Fancy meeting you here in your own yard," she teased. I managed a weak smile. It feels like the first time I've seen daylight in weeks. Jenna's expression softened. "That bad, huh?" Before I knew it, I was spilling everything. The move, the tension with Ethan, Anne's constant criticism. Jenna listened without judgment, offering tissues when the tears started falling. "Lara, honey, you can't keep living like this," she said gently. "Have you thought about leaving?" I stared at her, shocked. I can't. Ethan needs me. Riley needs his father." Jenna shook her head. "What about what you need? You're disappearing, Lara. I can see it happening right in front of me." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She was right. I was losing myself, piece by piece. "Lara," Anne's shrill voice cut through the air. "Where are you? Brian needs his bath." I closed my eyes, steeling myself. "I should go." Jenna reached across the fence, squeezing my hand. "Think about what I said, okay? You deserve better than this." As I turned to go back inside, I caught sight of Ethan watching from an upstairs window. The look of disappointment on his face made my stomach churn. That night, as we lay in bed, Ethan finally spoke. "I saw you talking to the neighbor today." "Her name is Jenna," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Mom says she's been filling your head with nonsense, telling you to leave us." I sat up, anger flaring. "So you're spying on me now?" Ethan's face hardened. "Someone has to keep an eye on you. You've been neglecting your duties, Lara. Mom's had to pick up your slack." "My duties?" I spat. "I'm your wife, Ethan, not your servant." "Keep your voice down," he hissed. "You'll wake Riley." I stared at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and irreversible. Ethan's face contorted in shock, then anger. "A divorce? Are you out of your mind, Lara?" I stood my ground, heart pounding. "I'm serious, Ethan. I can't live like this anymore." He scoffed, running a hand through his hair. "This is ridiculous. You're just tired. Get some sleep, and we'll talk in the morning." But I knew there was no going back. I grabbed a pillow and headed for the door. "I'll sleep in Riley's room tonight." As I settled onto the small couch in Riley's room, my mind raced. How would I manage on my own? Where would we go? The questions swirled until exhaustion finally pulled me under. The next morning, I woke to Riley's gentle pats on my cheek. "Mama, why are you sleeping here?" I forced a smile. "Just wanted to be close to you, sweetie. Let's get you dressed." As we made our way downstairs, the tension in the house was palpable. Anne's eyes narrowed as she saw me. "Ethan told me about your outburst last night," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "I hope you've come to your senses." I ignored her, focusing on getting Riley his breakfast. Ethan appeared, looking haggard. "Lara, can we talk?" he asked, gesturing to the patio. Once outside, he sighed heavily. "Look, I know things have been tough, but divorce? That's not the answer." I steeled myself. "It is for me, Ethan. I'm not happy. I haven't been for a long time." "And what about Riley? Have you thought about what this would do to him?" The guilt hit me like a wave, but I pushed through. "Of course I have. But staying in an unhappy marriage isn't good for him either." Ethan's face hardened. "If you do this, you'll regret it. My parents have connections. They'll make sure you never see Riley again." The threat sent a chill down my spine. Before I could respond, Anne's voice called from inside. "Ethan, the movers are here." Confused, I followed Ethan back into the house. Two burly men stood in the entryway, clipboards in hand. "What's going on?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. Anne smiled sweetly. "Oh, didn't Ethan tell you? We've decided to sell your apartment. It's time for a fresh start, all together." The room spun. You can't do that. My parents gave us that apartment. "As a wedding gift," Ethan interjected. "And since you're so keen on ending our marriage, I'd say it's fair game." I felt the walls closing in. Our apartment, my safe haven, was being ripped away, and with it any chance of independence. "You planned this," I whispered, the realization dawning. "You knew I was unhappy, so you trapped me here." Anne's smile turned predatory. "Now, Lara, don't be dramatic. We're family. This is what's best for everyone." I watched helplessly as the movers began packing up our life. Riley tugged at my sleeve, confusion in his eyes. Mama, where are our things going? I knelt down, fighting back tears. They're coming here, sweetie. We're going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a while. As I held Riley close, I caught sight of Jenna through the window. She waved, concern etched on her face. I managed a weak smile, but inside I was screaming. Later that night, as the house finally quieted, I slipped out to the backyard. Jenna was there, waiting. Lara, what's going on? I saw the movers earlier. The dam broke, and I told her everything. The forced move, Ethan's threats, the loss of our apartment. Jenna listened, her expression growing more horrified. Lara, this is abuse. You need to get out of there. How? I choked out. They've taken everything. I have nowhere to go, no money of my own. Jenna reached across the fence, gripping my hand tightly. Listen to me. I have a friend who's a lawyer. She specializes in cases like yours. Let me call her. As I nodded, a light flicked on upstairs. Ethan's silhouette appeared in the window, watching us. I have to go, I whispered urgently. Jenna squeezed my hand one last time. Be ready. We're getting you out of there. As I crept back inside, my heart raced with equal parts fear and hope. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control returning. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't go down without a fight. The next morning, I woke with a newfound determination. Jenna's words echoed in my mind, giving me strength. I had to act, and fast. As I made breakfast, Anne hovered nearby, her eyes following my every move. I hope you've reconsidered your foolish notion of divorce, Lara. It would be such a shame to tear this family apart. I bit my tongue, focusing on Riley's cereal. Ethan walked in, his face a mask of indifference. Morning, he mumbled, barely glancing at me. I took a deep breath. Ethan, we need to talk, privately. Anne's eyes narrowed, but she retreated to Brian's room. Ethan sighed, following me to the patio. What is it now, Lara? I steeled myself. I'm leaving. Today. And I'm taking Riley with me. Ethan's face contorted with anger. Like hell you are. You have nowhere to go, no money, you're nothing without us. His words stung, but I stood my ground. I've contacted a lawyer. She's helping me file for divorce and emergency custody. Ethan's laugh was cold. Good luck with that. My parents' lawyers will bury you. I have evidence, Ethan, I said, my voice shaking, of the emotional abuse, the manipulation, the way you and your mother have isolated me. His face paled. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, playing a recording of last night's conversation. Ethan's threats echoed in the quiet morning air. You bitch, he hissed. You'll regret this. Before I could respond, a scream pierced the air. We rushed inside to find Anne standing over Brian's bed, her face ashen. He's not breathing, she wailed. The next few hours passed in a blur. Paramedics arrived, but it was too late. Brian was gone. As the coroner took Brian's body away, I retreated to Riley's room, holding him close. The weight of what I had to do pressed down on me. A soft knock at the door startled me. It was Anne, her eyes red-rimmed. Lara, she said, her voice hoarse. I need you. We all do. Please, let's put this nonsense behind us, for Brian's sake. For a moment I wavered. The grief in her eyes was real, and part of me ached to comfort her. But then I remembered the months of manipulation, the constant belittling, the way she and Ethan had conspired to trap me here. I'm sorry for your loss, Anne, I said softly, but I can't stay. It's not healthy for me or for Riley. Anne's face hardened. You ungrateful little. Everything okay in here? Ethan appeared in the doorway, his eyes darting between us. I nodded, gathering Riley in my arms. We're fine. I was just telling your mother that Riley and I will be staying at a hotel tonight. We need some space. Ethan's jaw clenched. Now isn't the time for this, Lara. We need to plan the funeral, deal with Dad's estate. And we will, I interrupted. But not here. Not like this. As I moved to leave, Ethan grabbed my arm. You're not taking my son anywhere. Riley whimpered, burying his face in my neck. The sound seemed to snap Ethan out of his rage. Fine, he spat. Go. But this isn't over. I hurried downstairs, my heart pounding. As I reached for the door, Anne's voice stopped me cold. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. You'll never see a penny of Brian's money, and I'll make sure everyone knows what an abandoning whore you are. I turned to face her, surprised by the calm that washed over me. Goodbye, Anne. As I stepped outside, Jenna was waiting in her car, engine running. You ready? She called. I nodded, buckling Riley into the back seat. As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of Ethan and Anne in the rearview mirror, their faces a mix of fury and disbelief. "Where to?" Jenna asked. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few years lifting. "Anywhere but here." As we drove away from the house that had become my prison, I felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was free to choose my own path. The hotel room felt like a sanctuary after the chaos of the past few days. Riley slept peacefully in the adjoining room while I pored over documents with Sarah, Jenna's lawyer friend. "These recordings are damning, Lara," Sarah said, her brow furrowed. "But Ethan's family has deep pockets. They'll fight dirty." I nodded, steeling myself. "I'm ready. What's our next move?" A sharp knock at the door made us both jump. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. My heart raced as I saw Ethan standing there, his face a mask of barely contained rage. "Lara, open the damn door." Sarah squeezed my arm. "Don't, I'll call security." But as she reached for her phone, another voice joined Ethan's, Anne's. "Lara, darling, please, we just want to talk." Against my better judgment, I cracked the door open, the security chain still in place. "What do you want?" Ethan's eyes were bloodshot, his hair disheveled. "You can't do this. You can't take my son away." "Our son," I corrected, my voice stronger than I felt. "And I'm not taking him away. I'm protecting him." Anne pushed forward, her face a picture of concern. "Sweetheart, we're worried about you. This isn't like you, running away, hiring lawyers. Come home, we can work this out as a family." For a moment I almost wavered. The familiar pull of their manipulation tugged at me. But then I remembered the months of gaslighting, the isolation, the constant belittling. "No," I said firmly. "We're done. The divorce papers have been filed. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." Ethan's face contorted with fury. "You think you can win? My family will destroy you. You'll never see Riley again." As he lunged forward, the security chain snapped taut. Sarah appeared behind me, her phone in hand. "Step back, or I'm calling the police," she warned. Anne's saccharine smile faltered. "Now, there's no need for that. We're all adults here." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I have something to say, and then I want you both to leave." They fell silent, watching me warily. "I know about the affair, Anne." The color drained from Anne's face. Ethan turned to his mother, confusion etched in his features. "What is she talking about?" I pressed on, my heart pounding. "I have proof. Emails, hotel receipts, photos, all while Brian was sick. While you were guilting me into caring for him, you were off with your lover." Anne's composure cracked. "You little bitch, you've been snooping through my things?" Ethan stumbled back, his world visibly crumbling. "Mom? Is this true?" I closed the door, muffling their voices. Sarah stared at me, wide-eyed. "That wasn't in our strategy," she whispered. "I know," I replied, my hands shaking, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. As Sarah called hotel security, I sank onto the bed, the adrenaline leaving me in a rush. What had I done? Hours later, after Ethan and Anne had been escorted from the premises, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over. You've ruined everything. I hope you're ready for war." I showed the message to Sarah, who immediately began typing on her laptop. "We'll file for a restraining order first thing in the morning," she said. "But Lara, you need to be prepared. This is going to get ugly." As if on cue, my phone lit up with notifications. Social media posts, texts from mutual friends, all asking about the rumors spreading online. Anne had wasted no time in launching her smear campaign. I curled up next to Riley, watching his peaceful face as he slept. The enormity of what lay ahead crashed over me. I had thrown the first punch, exposed Anne's deepest secret. But at what cost? As the night wore on, I wrestled with doubt and fear. Had I made the right choice? Could I really win against Ethan's family and their resources? But as the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, I felt a resolve solidify within me. I had come too far to back down now. For Riley's sake, for my own, I had to see this through. Whatever came next, I would face it head on. The war had begun, and I was ready to fight. The courthouse loomed before me, its imposing facade a stark reminder of the battle ahead. I clutched Riley's hand tightly as we climbed the steps, Sarah and Jenna flanking us protectively. "Remember," Sarah whispered, "stay calm, no matter what they throw at you." I nodded, my throat too tight for words. As we entered the courtroom, I saw Ethan and Anne already seated, their expensive lawyer leaning in close, whispering strategy. The judge called the court to order, and the air crackled with tension. Ethan's lawyer stood, his voice dripping with false concern. Your Honor, we have grave concerns about the welfare of young Riley. Mrs. Thompson has shown erratic behavior, making unfounded accusations and fleeing the family home. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to shout out. Sarah squeezed my hand reassuringly before rising to speak. Your Honor, my client has extensive documentation of emotional abuse and manipulation at the hands of Mr. Thompson and his mother. We also have evidence of Mrs. Ann Thompson's infidelity during her husband's illness. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Anne's face turned ashen, while Ethan's jaw clenched visibly. The judge frowned. These are serious allegations. I'd like to see this evidence immediately. As Sarah presented our case, I watched Ethan and Anne whisper furiously to their lawyer. The pit in my stomach grew with each passing moment. Suddenly, Ethan stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to speak. The judge nodded, and Ethan turned to face me, his eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and something else. Desperation? Laura, he said, his voice cracking. I know I've made mistakes, we both have, but Riley needs both of us. Please, can't we work this out? For a moment I wavered. The familiar pull of our shared history tugged at my heart, but then I remembered the months of gaslighting, the isolation, the constant belittling. No, Ethan, I said firmly, it's too late for that. Anne leapt to her feet. You ungrateful little witch, after everything we've done for you. Mrs. Thompson, the judge barked. Control yourself, or I'll have you removed from this courtroom. As Anne sank back into her seat, her face contorted with rage, I felt a surge of strength. I stood, addressing the judge directly. Your Honor, I've spent years trying to please this family, sacrificing my own happiness and well-being in the process. I'm not asking for money or revenge. I just want to raise my son in a healthy, loving environment. The judge nodded thoughtfully. I've seen enough for today. We'll reconvene tomorrow for my decision. As we filed out of the courtroom, I felt a mix of relief and dread. What if the judge sided with Ethan? What if I lost Riley? Outside, reporters swarmed us, shouting questions about Anne's affair and the family's dirty laundry. Jenna and Sarah formed a protective barrier around Riley and me as we pushed through the crowd. Suddenly, I heard Ethan's voice behind me. Lara, wait! I turned to see him jogging towards us, his face a mask of anguish. Please, can we talk? Just for a minute? Against my better judgment, I nodded. Jenna, can you take Riley to the car? As soon as Riley was out of earshot, Ethan's demeanor changed. His eyes hardened, his voice low and menacing. You think you've won? This is far from over. My mother has friends in high places. We'll make sure you never see Riley again. I felt the blood drain from my face. You wouldn't dare. Try me, he snarled. You've ruined everything. Now I'm going to ruin you. As he stormed off, I stood rooted to the spot, my world spinning. Sarah appeared at my side, her face etched with concern. Lara? What happened? What did he say? I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. The weight of Ethan's threat crashed over me, leaving me gasping for air. As we drove away from the courthouse, Riley chattering happily in the back seat, I stared out the window, my mind racing. How far would Ethan and Anne go to keep Riley? What lengths would I have to go to protect him? The war I had started was far from over. And as the sun set on this tumultuous day, I realized that the real battle was just beginning. The courtroom fell silent as the judge cleared his throat. My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure everyone could hear it. Riley sat beside me, blissfully unaware of the gravity of this moment. In the matter of Thompson versus Thompson, the judge began, I've carefully considered all evidence presented. The accusations of emotional abuse, manipulation, and infidelity are deeply troubling. I held my breath, feeling Jenna's reassuring hand on my shoulder. It is the decision of this court to grant full custody of Riley Thompson to Lara Thompson, with supervised visitation rights for Ethan Thompson. The room erupted in chaos. I sat stunned, tears of relief streaming down my face. Ethan leapt to his feet, shouting obscenities, while Anne wailed dramatically. Order, the judge bellowed. Mr. Thompson, control yourself or you'll be held in contempt. As the bailiff escorted Ethan and Anne out, I hugged Riley close, whispering, It's over, baby. We're going to be okay. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. I steeled myself, ready to face them head-on. Mrs. Thompson, how do you respond to accusations that you fabricated evidence against your mother-in-law? I took a deep breath. Every piece of evidence presented was thoroughly vetted by my legal team. The truth has prevailed today, and that's all that matters. As we pushed through the crowd, I caught sight of Anne being helped into a car, her face ashen. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her gaze: defeat. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Riley thrived in our new apartment, away from the toxic environment of his grandparents' home. I found a job I loved, rediscovering parts of myself I thought I'd lost. One crisp autumn day, as Riley and I walked hand in hand through the park, I spotted a familiar figure on a bench. It was Anne, looking years older than when I'd last seen her. "Lara," she called out weakly. "Please, can we talk?" Every instinct told me to keep walking, but something in her voice made me pause. "5 minutes," I said, sitting Riley down with his toys nearby. Anne's hands trembled as she spoke. "I've lost everything. Ethan barely speaks to me. The country club. Well, let's just say my social circle has shrunk considerably." I remained silent, waiting. "I know it's too late," she continued, "but I want you to know I'm sorry for everything. The way I treated you, the lies, the manipulation. I was so afraid of losing control that I ended up losing everything that mattered." I studied her face, searching for any sign of deceit. Finding none, I nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that, Anne. It doesn't change the past, but it means something." As I stood to leave, Anne reached out, her eyes pleading. "Do you think, someday, I might be able to see Riley again?" I took a deep breath, weighing my words carefully. "That's not my decision to make anymore. When Riley's older, if he wants to know you, I won't stand in the way. But for now, we need space to heal." Walking away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The last threads of resentment and anger loosened their grip on my heart. That night, as I tucked Riley into bed, he asked, "Mommy, are you happy?" I smiled, realizing the truth of my answer. "Yes, sweetheart, I really am." Later, curled up on the couch with a cup of tea, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the struggles, the moments of doubt, they had all shaped me into the woman I was now. Strong, resilient, free. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. "Drinks tomorrow to celebrate your promotion?" I grinned, typing back a quick, "Absolutely." As I gazed out the window at the city lights, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities. For the first time in years, I was excited to see what it held. I had faced my demons, stood up to my oppressors, and come out stronger on the other side. The woman who had once felt trapped and powerless was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone who knew her worth, and wasn't afraid to fight for it. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new adventures. But tonight, in this moment, I was exactly where I needed to be. Home. Safe. Free. And as I drifted off to sleep, one thought echoed in my mind. The best revenge isn't destruction or retribution. It's living well, on your own terms. And that's exactly what I intended to do.
That's why I asked you to repay the debt. The husband who suddenly saddled me with a huge debt and disappeared. No matter how much I tried to contact him, there was no response at all. What am I supposed to do now? There's no way I can pay off such a large debt. Fortunately, there was someone by my side who encouraged me when I was feeling lost. "Mom, cheer up." The owner of that voice was my lovely daughter. "My name is Kate, 35 years old, working part-time and being a housewife. My husband's name is Rogan, and we are a family of 3. I met Rogan at a mixer I joined just to make up the numbers. I was nervous, but Rogan proactively spoke to me and lightened up the atmosphere. Before we knew it, we got along well and decided to exchange contact information. From there, as we continued to communicate, a special feeling sprouted between us. It didn't take long for us to start dating. Who would have thought I'd end up in this kind of relationship with someone I met at a mixer? After our first date, I told my older sister Talia about Rogan. Talia burst into laughter and reacted like this. "Really? I never thought you'd choose a boyfriend from a mixer. I assumed you'd date someone from work or something. I've always been the quiet type ever since I can remember. I'm not good at socializing, and even after becoming an adult, I rarely attended gatherings like parties. It's an unexpected twist, right? You went because you were asked as a favor to make up the numbers, right? Exactly. When I showed a photo from my date with Rogan, Talia excitedly remarked, "He's surprisingly handsome." We then briefly updated each other about our lives and decided to part ways for the day. Talia has yet to marry and doesn't seem to have a boyfriend. She apparently enjoys her single life, feeling it's more laid back and comfortable, showing no particular interest in marrying or having a boyfriend. While I can understand such a mindset, my heart is currently set on a future with Rogan. If our relationship progresses smoothly and we are blessed with marriage and children, how wonderful that would be. On my way home after chatting with Talia, a spontaneous smile graced my face. A few years later, I was able to marry Rogan. I vividly remember the moment he proposed. I was overwhelmed with emotion and unable to hold back tears. We moved into a new apartment, marking the start of our married life. Having lived separately before marriage, being with Rogan every day felt surreal, almost dreamlike. Because of our differing work hours, we rarely came home at the same time. Nevertheless, we would dine together, sleep under the same blanket, and above all, cherish the moments we shared. On our days off, we'd either relax at home or go for drives, making the most of our time together. During such everyday moments, a new joy was brought to our lives. We were blessed with a child a few months later. A tiny and adorable girl was born. The emotional impact of her birth is something I believe I'll never forget for the rest of my life. We named our daughter Rhea. Since Raya's birth, I felt as though I had discovered true happiness. Our parents and relatives were also overjoyed, sending a myriad of congratulatory gifts. Just before giving birth to Rhea, I had resigned from my job to fully dedicate myself to my family. Rogan, always having me in his thoughts, helped with housework and child care even when he was presumably tired. "I'll take care of Rhea so you can rest for a bit. Thank you truly always." I truly married a wonderful person. Living with Rogan, who treasures us, has been a heartwarming experience. However, a few years later, I would deeply regret marrying Rogan. Several years after Raya's birth, Rogan suddenly resigned from his job. He began to explain the detailed reasons to me, as I was taken aback by the abrupt news. Apparently, he had been having issues with a new superior at work, which seemed to have taken a toll on his mental well-being. He reached his breaking point and decided to quit. I understand why he left his job, but something bothers me. If it was that tough for him, why hadn't he consulted with me even once? Of course, if a husband faces challenges at work, resigning is one of the options, but right now our family relies on Rogan's salary. He should have discussed such a significant decision with me before acting on it. That was so sudden. Have you already thought about your next job? Yeah, don't worry, I'll figure something out. Rogan's vague response didn't ease my worries. However, it seems the only thing I can do now is trust him. Fortunately, Rogan found a new job relatively quickly. That's a relief. I also considered working, but since Raya is still young, I want to be there for her at home. Is everything okay at the new workplace? Have you settled in? Yeah, somehow. Did something happen? Are you not getting along with your boss or colleagues? I told you I'm fine. Don't worry too much. Look, I'll take care of Raya, so you go and take a bath. Really? Thank you. He seemed different from usual, but I felt that prying further might upset him, so I handed Raya to him and headed to the bath. Then a few days later, Rogan came home looking dejected. As I tried to ask him what had happened, memories of the past flashed through my mind. I recalled the time when he suddenly announced his resignation. Did he quit his job again within such a short period? Sadly, my suspicions seemed to be right. I quit my job. Why? I just couldn't get along with the people there. I couldn't stand being constantly directed by someone much younger than me. I just couldn't bear it anymore. I see. But we'll get through this. We'll find another job. I'll help in any way I can, I offered. Suddenly, Rogan's expression changed, and he raised his voice at me. Hey, what's with that look? You don't like that I quit. You're able to eat because I work. You just stay at home, and you're acting all high and mighty. After saying that, he threw his bag onto the living room table. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? Shut up, just be quiet. Unable to contain his anger, Rogan grabbed a whiskey from the fridge and downed it in one gulp. I'd never seen him this angry before. At that moment, I felt terrified. I've always been grateful to him and try to be supportive as much as possible. An extremely angry Rogan shouted at me for a while and then plopped down on the sofa, looking grumpy. I was so shocked that all I could do was accept his words, and this incident created a rift in our relationship. Since then, Rogan has been in a cycle of finding and quitting jobs. We lived in uncertainty and experienced many anxious days. Rogan, can't you be a bit more serious about your job? At first, I tried to understand his feelings and said nothing. But given the circumstances, I couldn't keep silent any longer. You're annoying. If you have complaints, then you work and earn money. You rely too much on me. But there's Raya to consider. So what's your point? Lately, Rogan has been gradually losing interest in Raya and seems to be avoiding her. When Raya was born, he took great care of her and was genuinely happy. Observing Rogan now, he felt like a completely different person. No matter how much I pleaded, Rogan showed no interest in continuing his work. Eventually, I decided to entrust Raya to Talia and started working on my own. I'm really sorry for having to leave her with you. It's okay. Raya and I will wait together, okay? Ria, who had just started attending kindergarten, wasn't a major concern. When it came to leaving her with someone, part of it was because I trusted Talia to take care of her. But Raya was also remarkably mature and calm for her age. She showed interest in newspapers, read them on her own, and could even write long and somewhat complex sentences. Raya had a quiet disposition and was exceptionally composed for her age. When she started attending kindergarten, I was concerned about whether she'd be able to make friends and communicate effectively with others besides me. However, it turned out I didn't need to worry. Raya made many friends in kindergarten and enjoyed her time there. As a parent, that was the most heartwarming thing to witness. Given the situation, I felt it would be no problem for me to work outside the home. When I started looking for a job, I found one quicker than expected, and thus I began working full-time. The pay was better than I had anticipated. Even if Rogan quit his job, our finances would probably stabilize. Thankfully, the work environment was also pleasant, despite the busy days. I enjoyed working. A few years after I began working, Rogan finally found a stable job. He might have finally found a workplace that satisfied him. Upon learning this, I felt a profound sense of relief. Rogan's demeanor started to brighten over time, and he seemed to return to the man I knew in the early days of our marriage. He became considerate of the challenges I faced juggling work and family, often asking, "Has it been tough? Aren't you tired?" I was a bit taken aback by this transformation. Perhaps job stability had given Rogan peace of mind. Raya was growing up healthily, and Rogan started acting like a caring father to her once again. Seeing Raya play joyfully with Rogan always warmed my heart. Still, the thought of returning to the way things were before made me anxious about leaving my job. Therefore, I continued to rely on Talia for childcare. How's Raya? Is she looking well? Don't worry, she's playing happily. If Raya is doing well, I can be at ease. I'd probably continue to depend on Talia. I had been considering treating Talia to something she liked as a token of my appreciation. Several years went by, and Raya was now in the 3rd grade of elementary school. She attended school every day with great enthusiasm. The family's bond was just like before, harmonious and loving. I wondered what had caused the previous rift between Rogan and me. Our home life felt so stable, almost as if the past problems had been forgotten. Then one day, Rogan made a suggestion. Ever think about getting a new car? A new car? Yeah, our current car is good, but I think it's reaching the end of its life. It's becoming a hassle to maintain. Indeed, the car we were using had been purchased quite a while ago. Over the years, issues increased, and the repair costs started to pile up. You might be right. Maybe we should consider a new car. Yes, I knew you'd agree. By the way, I've already got some catalogs ready. I didn't expect him to be this eager about replacing the car. I was a bit surprised, but we started looking through the catalogs together. Rhea, come here. Which car do you want to ride in? Let's decide together. He called Raya over, and the 3 of us enjoyed flipping through the car catalogs together. However, I couldn't have imagined that this day would mark the beginning of an unexpected turn of events. A few months later, the new car that the 3 of us chose was delivered. The car we bought was a brand new model, costing over $155,000. The loan was under my name. Generally, people would expect Rogan's name on the loan, but considering his unstable work history, we were concerned about being rejected. I was determined to work even harder from now on and pay off the loan. I was sure Rogan felt the same way, that's what I believed. But my hopes were shattered in an instant. Rogan stopped coming home. He disappeared along with the newly purchased car. Could it be that Rogan got involved in some kind of trouble? What should I do? At that moment, my cell phone rang. The call was from Rogan. Hello, Rogan, what are you doing? Where are you now? Out of concern, my voice raised unintentionally. Hey, calm down. But you disappeared all of a sudden, and the new car is gone. What happened? Did you get caught up in some trouble? I tried to convey how I had worried every day until then, but Rogan laughed at my concerns and said something unbelievable. Actually, I found a new lover. She's more important to me than you. What do you mean? Let me be clear. I've fallen in love with someone else. I've already taken care of the divorce notice. I'd appreciate it if you stopped getting involved. Wait, divorce? I can't believe this. I was shocked by the mention of a divorce notice. However, I remembered a discussion we had during a big fight a while ago. Submitting the application to the court means that both parties agree to the divorce. I deeply regretted letting my emotions take control at that time. Oh, by the way, I have a debt. I'm counting on you to repay it. How much debt are we talking about? I think $200,000, give or take. I'm leaving all the repayments to you. With those words, Rogan abruptly hung up the phone. I never thought something like this would happen to me. Were all of his kind smiles in the past just lies? As these thoughts crossed my mind, I could feel the strength drain from my body. Mom, what happened? As I slumped to the floor, Raya rushed over, looking concerned. It's okay, honey, thank you. I tried to put on a brave face, but inside I was filled with anxiety. How will I manage our life now with such a massive debt looming over us? The thought of the $200,000 made me feel suffocated. On top of that, there was still the car loan to think about. In a state of panic, I thought to check my bank balance. I searched the closet, drawers, kitchen, bedroom, everywhere. My ATM card was nowhere to be found. Frantically, I launched my bank app on my smartphone. To my horror, the account balance had significantly decreased. Of course, I had no memory of withdrawing such an amount. Rogan was the only suspect. I tried to contact him, but of course, there was no response from Rogan. It's all over. With my mind going blank, I thought I should focus on earning money. I decided to keep this a secret from Talia to avoid unnecessary worry. Of course, I also kept it from young Rhea. A few weeks after Rogan disappeared, I lost consciousness at work. When I came to, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. "Where am I? Kate, are you awake, sis?" Talia, with a shaken expression, entered the room with Rhea standing beside her. It seemed I had fainted due to extreme stress. I was also told that I needed to be hospitalized for several days for detailed examinations. Hospitalized? What should I do after your discharge? Let's talk about Rogan. Rhea told me everything. Rhea told you? Did you know, actually, I overheard Dad's phone call. I was surprised to find out that Rhea knew the truth. When it was time for my discharge, I felt down a bit, for Talia might point out that I wasn't supposed to let her know about it. Then the next day, various tests were conducted. The results revealed that my poor health was due to cancer. Fortunately, it was still in the early stages and there was hope for recovery through surgery. Although the surgery went well and I was discharged, returning to work immediately seemed impossible. I had no savings and medical bills were piling up. During these challenging times, Talia and Rhea became my pillars of support. When Rhea explained the situation with Rogan and my current state to Talia was even more furious than I had anticipated. Talia tried to locate Rogan with a plan to make him repay the debt and medical bills, but his whereabouts remained unknown. We don't have any leads on Rogan's current location. What do we do? It was then that Talia came up with a suggestion. The car that's under your name, Rogan has it, right? How about we try to get it back? Is that really possible? I asked in surprise. Talia shared more information. Actually, I found out where Rogan is currently working. Surprisingly, Rogan seemed to be working for a different company inside the building where Talia works. Though Talia usually opts for remote work, she occasionally visits the office and has reportedly seen him there. Knowing this, we can move forward with our plan. Then let's go to Rogan's place right away. I was eager to confront Rogan immediately. If we don't take action soon, he might disappear again. However, Talia stopped me. Don't rush, we need a solid plan, not just a hasty approach. Rhea and I have come up with a good idea. That's right, a plan. Both of them exchanged smiles. I couldn't grasp the profound implications behind their demeanor. Watching them silently, Rhea beamed and reassured me, saying, "Don't worry, everything's set up." What kind of scheme had they hatched? They didn't provide the specifics, but everything became clear a month later while at Talia's house. There was a sudden incoming call. Checking the caller ID, it was from Rogan. I initially ignored the call, but it kept coming in repeatedly. Something must have happened. Gathering my courage, I answered, and Rogan pleaded in a frantic voice. "Hey, help me out, please. I'll explain everything later. Just get here now. I'm about to be arrested." Rogan shared his current location and quickly ended the call. Having overheard the conversation, Talia and Rhea finally revealed the turn of events. Actually, we reported the car as stolen, and the idea that was Rhea impressive, right? Rhea blushed and looked down, filled with gratitude. I expressed my thanks to the two of them and hurried to the place where Rogan was waiting. The park he specified was surprisingly close to my home. There were police officers gathered around Rogan. He seemed to be interrogated about something. We hurriedly approached Rogan's vicinity. First, we explained the situation to the police officers and had them leave. Afterward, Rogan ushered us into his car and began narrating the events that led to this. Glancing inside the car, a confident-looking woman sat boldly in the passenger seat, her legs crossed. She stared at us with a cold gaze. "Thanks for coming. But why did the police come to me? He had been surrounded and questioned by the police, yet he didn't hear anything they said. I was so dumbfounded that I couldn't find words. Because I reported the car as stolen. After all, that car is mine. What, we're divorced, so we have no current ties. Thus, the current situation paints a picture of Rogan as unauthorized using another person's car. Reporting it stolen was the natural course of action. He probably never expected to be reported for car theft. Raya furthered the conversation with Rogan, who was visibly shaken. "Dad, why did you leave us behind? Why won't you pay back the money yourself? Explain." Rogan let out a sigh and looked at us with an exasperated expression, but he remained silent. "If you're just going to remain silent, I'll report it to the police. Do you realize that using my name without permission is a crime?" Hearing this, Rogan began to talk bit by bit. He mentioned his mistress, Layli. Apparently, she recently joined the company where Rogan works. They connected during a company welcome party, which developed into a romantic relationship. Shockingly, about 3 months ago, he found out she was pregnant. Looking at Lily's stomach, it was evident that she was expecting. So he chose her over us and left. That's a bad way to phrase it, isn't it? But the fact remains, you left, right? Talia suddenly interjected, and Rogan seemed taken aback. Ignoring his surprised expression, Talia continued her line of questioning. She began to lash out at Rogan, criticizing his past actions, his irresponsible behavior towards the family, constantly changing jobs, and his quick temper, often resulting in him raising his voice in anger. Rogan, deep in thought or perhaps just tuning her out, bowed his head and remained silent. Lily's face contorted in evident irritation. At this, she continued to press him about the reason for the $200,000 debt. But he stayed mute. That seemingly unable to hold back any longer, Lily revealed a shocking truth. He borrowed money in his wife's name for me, gifting me a lot of luxury branded items. I was truly lucky, a debt of $200,000 to be gifts for Lily. What on earth did he buy from her? From her story, it can be inferred that he purchased several expensive luxury items. It's hard to believe, but what was more curious was how easily Lily revealed the reason for Rogan's debt. If they were in cahoots, revealing such information would put them at a disadvantage. While contemplating this, Raya posed a question to Lily. "Your belly's pretty big. Is it a baby? What are you due?" "In about 3 months, I guess," Lily replied. Giving birth in 3 months. That calculation didn't seem right, considering she was supposedly impregnated 3 months ago. Shouldn't there be more time? Talia, too, seemed to notice this inconsistency and pressed Lily further. "Is that baby really Rogan's? Isn't it odd for the baby to be due in 3 months? Whose child is it?" Talia voiced her suspicions directly. Although surprised, Lily didn't seem intent on hiding anything. "Actually, the child isn't Rogan's. I thought about keeping it a secret, but I figured it'd be a hassle to get further involved with him, so I'll just spill the beans." "Is that why you were honest about the debt too?" "Yeah, there's no point being with Rogan anymore after all," she said with a mocking expression. The atmosphere was heavy and hellish. I wanted to get away from here right now. Meanwhile, Rogan stared intently at Lily with an incredulous expression. "Hey, what are you talking about? This is a joke, right?" "Why would it be a joke? I mean exactly what I said." The tension increased, making the atmosphere even more stifling. Amidst this, Talia took charge of the situation. "Anyway, I'll call the police." "Huh? What are you talking about?" "I couldn't care less about you too, but remember, borrowing money under Kate's name is a criminal act. Plus, using the car without permission is also a crime, especially since Rogan and Kate are complete strangers." Talia instructed me to contact the police. Rogan and Lily were frantically trying to talk their way out of the situation. However, I ignored their pleas and made the call. After a while, I could hear the sirens approaching. This should make them face the consequences. The issues regarding the debt and the car should be on their way to resolution. I felt a huge relief finally. Things were sorted out. In the end, Rogan and Lily faced legal action. They didn't end up in prison, but they had to shoulder responsibilities such as compensation payments, repaying the debt, and child support on several occasions. They tried to reduce the payments through lawyers, but a secret recording that Raya had made was used as evidence, so their requests were denied. The reason why Raya had made the recording was because of a scene from a TV show she had watched with Talia. While I thought she was really quick-witted, I couldn't help but wonder what kind of shows Talia had shown Raya. After all that, Raya and I now live with Talia. Raya didn't face any issues commuting to school, since the distance from our It's already hard to digest the fact that my father-in-law passed away, but the shocking thing my husband, Bob, said right in front of me left me stunned. "Let's get divorced now that I've got the inheritance. I don't need an ATM like you anymore," he said. For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what Bob was saying. "What do you mean?" I asked. Bob grinned and smugly explained, "I got about $1 million from my dad's inheritance, so I don't need you anymore." Bob then went on to voice his frustrations about me. "Do you know how embarrassed? I had high hopes because it was a match arranged by my dad, but I was disappointed to see such a plain woman like you," he said. "Well, why did you marry me then?" "You could have just said no," I replied. "It's obvious, ain't it? For the money. Who'd marry someone like you otherwise?" he sneered. There was no way I could stay silent after hearing all that. "Fine, here's the divorce papers," I said. I decided to agree to the divorce from Bob without revealing something important. I hope he deeply regrets this later. "My name is Catherine Smith, 42 years old. I run a fashion company. I got married to Bob, who's 2 years younger, 2 years ago. Our marriage was arranged. Bob is the son of Mr. Smith, the CEO of a company I had been dealing with for many years. Being an only child, it seemed Mr. Smith initially intended for Bob to succeed him, but Bob showed no interest, nor was he particularly skilled at his job. So Bob quickly dropped out of the running for successor and just worked as a regular employee. What attracted me to Bob was his laid-back nature. Since childhood, people often told me I was too serious and lacked spontaneity. I was often praised for being studious, but sometimes people found me too stiff. Some of my ex-boyfriends even told me, "You're not fun, it's like I'm dating a boss." It was heartbreaking, but I always felt maybe I was too serious. Being labeled as inflexible was a common occurrence. I struggled with handling things casually and often got too engrossed. To me, Bob seemed like he was from a completely different world. "Oh, the place is closed today." During our first date, Bob took me to a restaurant. He recommended, but it was closed now. I would have been flustered by such an unexpected situation, but not Bob. "Let's just go to that diner over there." He changed plans effortlessly. For someone as rigid as me, his response was a revelation. I thought by being with him, I could also become adaptable. That's why I decided to marry him. Many people were against our marriage. Some even suggested I could find someone better. Even Mr. Smith, my father-in-law, wasn't very enthusiastic. "You sure you want to take on my son? It feels like I'm burdening you with him," he had asked. Back then, I felt no one really understood Bob's worth, but maybe they were right. Soon after we got married, Bob quit his job without consulting anyone. He just stopped going to work. When both I and Mr. Smith inquired about the reason, Bob nonchalantly said, "Wait, why do I need to work if you are making money for us both?" My father-in-law and I were so taken aback by this that we were at a loss for words. Why would he rely solely on me for income? I tried to persuade Bob multiple times afterward with my father-in-law, but Bob's mindset never changed. After all, even if I work, I can't make as much as Catherine. I was tempted to divorce Bob right after our marriage when he boldly declared he'd be a freeloader. If he was a young man in his 20s, I might have found this cute, but this tantrum was coming from a man approaching 40. In the end, we begrudgingly agreed that he'd do the household chores. Bob's parents had divorced a few years earlier. Apparently, before the divorce, Bob's mother wasn't particularly good at housework. She couldn't do anything, so I never learned anything from her. It seemed like Bob was making excuses, blaming his mother for his lack of domestic skills. True to his word, at first, Bob was clueless about housework. But with persistent praise and guidance, he managed to handle basic tasks. However, that doesn't mean he became exceptionally good at it. Still, he looked quite satisfied with himself, thanks to me taking care of the house. "Catherine can work, you should be grateful." There was something about Bob's confident expression that rubbed me the wrong way, but it wasn't worth making a fuss about. "Yes, Bob, I'm really grateful for your help," I said, forcing a smile. There were times I got irritated, but I think we managed to get along quite well. About a year into our marriage, a significant event occurred. My father-in-law adopted a child, a 9-year-old boy named Jack. Jack seemed like any ordinary boy. My father-in-law is the type of person who doesn't make senseless decisions. So why did he suddenly adopt Jack? One day when we were alone, I asked him. He replied, "Promise you won't tell anyone," and then explained. It turns out Jack was the child of an employee whom my father-in-law had been fond of, having had a close relationship with the family. My father-in-law cared for Jack like a grandson. Tragically, a while back, Jack's parents died in an accident. Jack's parents had eloped, and he had no close relatives to rely on. Otherwise, he would have ended up in a foster home. While my father-in-law wasn't sure if Jack would be happy with us, he decided to adopt him, hoping it'd be for the best. "I see, that's very kind of you," I responded. Although Bob and I didn't have children, we had quite a bit of freedom. "Please rely on me if you need anything." Upon hearing this, my father-in-law smiled warmly. After that, thankfully, my father-in-law relied on me from time to time, just as I had asked, on nights when he absolutely couldn't make it back from work or when he had pressing commitments. I took care of Jack. At first, Jack was a bit apprehensive, but he warmed up quickly. He's either very friendly or trying hard to fit in. Thinking about it made me feel somewhat emotional. Bob, on the other hand, wasn't thrilled about the situation. It seemed he wasn't exactly welcoming toward Jack. I could understand his mixed feelings, knowing his father took in a stranger. But when I tried talking to Bob, it turned out he had a completely different concern. Adopting him? What's he thinking? This is going to cut into my inheritance. I was hoping to get everything. I couldn't believe my ears. Bob wasn't feeling conflicted about Jack. He was worried about the inheritance. "I'm going to talk to Dad about this. I'm not cool with it." One day, Bob said this and went to confront his father. When he returned after a while, to my surprise, he was in a strangely good mood. I cautiously asked a smiling Bob, "How did it go?" He replied, "Oh, it's all good. My share isn't changing." "Huh, what do you mean?" I always thought that even an adopted child like Jack had the same inheritance rights as a biological child. What's going on here? Noticing my confusion, Bob smugly explained, "Dad's making Jack give up his inheritance rights." "Makes sense. I'm his only son, after all." Could the father-in-law who spoke of Jack with such affection really plan on leaving him nothing after his passing? Something didn't sit right with me. I wasn't convinced, but Bob said with relief, "I'm glad." Well, if my father-in-law says so, there must be a reason behind it. Either way, he is still in his 60s. We probably won't be dealing with any inheritance for a while. In fact, it seems more likely that I'd divorce Bob before my father-in-law passes away. I was nonchalantly pondering such thoughts. However, that moment came much sooner than expected. A year later, my father-in-law was involved in an accident and never came back. I never thought I'd say goodbye to him so soon. I've known my father-in-law longer than I've known Bob. He was a respectable man, both in his professional and private life. After hearing the news, I was overcome with a sense of loss, and tears wouldn't stop flowing. My eyes heavy from crying and my head throbbing, I forced myself to prepare for the funeral. Bob was the main mourner, but he didn't seem to be grieving. He just seemed distant. His father had passed away so suddenly. Perhaps Bob was in such shock that it didn't feel real. I had to step up and make preparations to bid farewell to my father-in-law on behalf of Bob. I felt like crying, but somehow held back during the funeral. As hard as it was for me, seeing Jack cry was the most heartbreaking. Throughout it all, Bob didn't shed a single tear. That's when I began to find his behavior peculiar. Rather than grieving, Bob seemed restless or even giddy. Sometime after the commotion, the reason became clear. "Bob, isn't something off with you? Aren't you sad about your dad's passing?" I intended my comment to reflect concern about his lack of tears, but his response caught me off guard. Of course I'm sad, but I'm also kind of thrilled." Oops, guess my joy showed, huh? "Come on, Catherine, Dad was the CEO, right? He's bound to have some money. How much do you think he left behind?" I had thought Bob was just zoning out, but from before the funeral up to now, he hadn't been mourning his father at all. Instead, he was grinning, thinking about the inheritance. "What on earth are you thinking?" "Well, think about it. We're divorced, and my mom doesn't have any of it. I'm his only blood child. Jack, being adopted, won't inherit anything, so all the inheritance is mine. Do you think I can't be thrilled about that?" Bob had a face that looked like he was about to burst into laughter at any moment. Seeing that face made me feel like I was going to slap him. Bob's face had relaxed so much, he was truly delighted from the bottom of his heart that my father-in-law had passed away. "I can't believe it," I said. "Say whatever you want." I just wanted to leave right then, but before that, there was something I had to tell Bob about Jack. Now that my father-in-law was gone, I had temporarily asked Bob to keep Jack at our place. But if things continued like this, Jack would have to go to a foster home. In that case, I wanted to raise Jack with my own hands. That's what I was thinking about Jack. "Yeah, you going to take him in? Sounds good to me." I was surprised by how easily Bob agreed. He continued with a smile, "After all, what you do, Catherine, has absolutely nothing to do with me anymore." Then he held up a single piece of paper to me. It was a green paper, a divorce paper. "What's this?" I asked, confused. Bob crisply replied, "Let's get a divorce. Now that I've got the inheritance, I don't need my personal ATM, you anymore." For a moment, I didn't understand what Bob was saying. Did he just call me an ATM and say I'm no longer needed? "What do you mean?" Bob smirked and proudly told me I got around $1 million from my dad's inheritance, so I don't need you anymore. Bob continued, "With this much, I don't have to work anymore. I don't need to please you. I don't have to bother with tedious chores." Oh, how wonderful. With exaggerated gestures, Bob openly expressed his joy. I was deeply shocked seeing this side of Bob. The inheritance was money that came in after my stepfather's death. Yet he's rejoicing as if he won the lottery. As I've been feeling, Bob doesn't seem to mourn or remember my father-in-law. He's genuinely happy. But money is a scary thing. It's not uncommon for people to change dramatically after getting a huge sum. Perhaps with such a large amount in front of him, Bob's just getting a bit carried away. Calm down, Bob. Let's talk first, I said, putting my hand on his shoulder. But Bob quickly shrugged it off and shouted at me with fury. Shut up, you boring woman. I married you because you were introduced by my father and you were a CEO, but I always felt suffocated with you. It's hard for me. Bob listed his grievances against me. I was so disappointed when I expected someone better from the arranged date my dad set up, but then got someone plain like you. If that's the case, he could have just refused the match. I never forced him or passionately persuaded him to marry me. Being portrayed as the victim didn't sit right with me. So why did you marry me then? If you had declined, that would have been fine. It's obvious, for the money. Who else would marry someone like you? Bob laughed at me, mocking. Basically, he married me for my wealth. Bob started with, "It's been a while, so I guess it's safe to say," and revealed a shocking fact. I had a significant debt. My dad said if I change my ways and devote myself to you, he would pay it off. So of course I would marry you. It meant he never loved me. He just married me for the money. Well, it wasn't fun, but thanks to you, I was saved. Thanks a lot. Seeing Bob laughing crudely, I made up my mind. I don't know this man anymore. I decided not to give him the advice I had planned on and just started filling out the divorce papers. Without hesitation, I wrote without pausing or second-guessing. Bob, who had been urging the divorce, seemed a bit surprised to see this. "Hey, are you thinking of getting a divorce now?" "Fine, here's the divorce papers." After writing them, I felt a sense of accomplishment. Now we're total strangers. Yeah, whatever happens now doesn't concern the other. You can live with that, kid. Jack and I can hang out with younger women. We're free. Bob was ecstatic from what I could see. He hadn't cheated during our marriage. I never suspected it, but that was a point of interest. But Bob, if you were this happy about it, you should have divorced sooner. I had my reasons. I wanted the money. Bob carelessly stuffed the divorce papers into his bag and left the house in a hurry. I didn't feel right staying in the house where I'd lived with Bob. I was thinking of starting fresh somewhere new with Jack. This seemed like a good time to sell the house and move. I'd love to live close to my parents' place. I think it would help both Jack and me. Jack will have to transfer schools, but he said that's okay. It's a bit sad, but now we can look for a new place without any reservations. Finding a new place was a bit of a challenge, but after some thought, I made a choice. The main deciding factors were the short distance to my parents and the great location. It's pricey, but considering Jack, I think it's the best property out there. Jack accompanied me to view the property, and his eyes lit up at the sight of the luxurious house. It's spacious and elaborately decorated. There's plenty of storage, which was a concern of mine, and surprisingly, it even came with a pool. Honestly, I didn't need a pool, but seeing Jack's excitement made it worth it. Wow, this is amazing. It would have been fine for me to live anywhere, but seeing him happy was what mattered most. And so we moved. It took a while for both Jack and me to adjust, but eventually our new house became a comforting place. Around that time, I got a call from Bob. He seemed desperate and said he wanted to meet and apologize immediately. I had an idea why he'd suddenly say that. I could have ignored him, but since he was so insistent, I decided to meet. I left Jack with my mother and headed to the diner I had specified. Bob had arrived earlier. He was sitting in a corner booth, looking pale and on the verge of tears. "Catherine," I gave Bob a cold look as he stood up upon seeing me. "What do you want, Bob? We're supposed to be strangers now." "Don't say that." The truth is my dad had debts. Damn. I never thought he'd. So what, you inherited $1 million, right? Just pay it off. No, the debts, they're more than the inheritance. It seemed the debt exceeded the $1 million inheritance, so after inheriting both the assets and the liabilities, Bob was now saddled with debt. I didn't know I'd inherit the debt too. Bob looked defeated. Please, Catherine. You must have some savings. We were married once. Please help me out, he pleaded with a flattering smile. Did Bob even remember what he said before? After all the times you belittled me, even calling me an ATM, who would want to help you now? It was audacious of him to contact me. He'd said over the phone that he wanted to apologize. But he hasn't done so yet. Yet you really regretted our marriage, didn't you? After everything you said, how can you ask for help now? Well, back then, I never imagined this would happen. His convenience astounded me. He probably thought he wouldn't need money from me anymore, but now that he does, he's grinning. It seemed that way. Sorry, but I can't meet your expectations. I don't have the money. What are you talking about? I know your business is thriving. Liar. I wish he'd stop blaming me, an innocent bystander, for his own mistakes. I'm not lying. I just don't have the money to lend to you. Not every bank lends to everyone, right? Why would I lend if I don't expect it back? Bob remembered the harsh words he once threw at me and looked a bit guilty, yet he doesn't apologize. Such a proud man. What's with a cold shoulder? Don't you care what happens to me? Oh, did you forget what you said when we got divorced? We're strangers now, nothing to do with each other. Weren't those your words? I don't understand how he can act like he's the victim. How thick-skinned can he be? Does he have the ability to forget everything that doesn't suit him? I wish I had recorded what he said back then and could play it back to him. I might have said something like that, but I didn't mean it. I never imagined things would turn out this way. Bob leaned on the table, looking sad. I thought about the life insurance, but my dad's lawyer said I'm not the beneficiary. Oh, really? I laughed at his statement, which made Bob look at me in shock. You don't think Catherine did my dad leave it to you? No, it's not me. Then why'd you laugh? Just felt a bit sorry for you, that's all. If it was insurance, I wouldn't have inherited the debts. Exactly. That's why my father-in-law had Jack renounce the inheritance. He had left something for Jack in the form of life insurance. The beneficiary of my father-in-law's life insurance was Jack. Is that all you wanted to talk about? If so, I'm leaving. There's nothing I can't do for you. Wait, can't we start over? I was just upset about my dad back then, but I truly care about you, Catherine. You mean you only see me as a dollar sign, right? I know Bob was denying and saying all sorts of things, but I'm not getting fooled again. After all, I don't have a single dime to give to someone like him. Well, someone important is waiting for me at home. With that, I left the diner. I could hear Bob crying out in a pitiful manner, but to me it was just noise. I need to hurry home. Jack might be hungry, or maybe he got something from his grandma. I quickly headed to the subway station. As for Bob, I heard he's working multiple part-time jobs to pay off his debts. With no work experience, qualifications, or motivation, he couldn't get a full-time job anywhere. I once saw him working at a convenience store while I was on my way to a client. He looked much older and thinner, quite shocking. Bob, who had been living off others, was now facing the consequences. There's no sympathy for him. On the other hand, I'm living peacefully with Jack. We even argue sometimes. Now, it's saddening when Jack ignores me after a fight, but I try to see it as a sign that he's opening up to me. I plan to support him until he can stand on his own 2 feet. That's probably what my father-in-law wished for, and it's my goal in life now. Ben and I started living together after getting engaged. He even invited his mother to live with us without consulting me and treated me like a servant. One day, I was involved in a traffic accident and rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. The doctor said I might have a permanent disability in my leg. To make matters worse, the perpetrator fled the scene and remains missing. Instead of showing concern, Ben and his mother hurled cruel words at me. "I'm going to marry a decent wife. I'll break off the engagement with someone who needs care, a defective product. She's not a match for Ben." A defective product should just disappear, crushed by their heartless words. I was too shocked to respond and just watched them leave the room, laughing. Okay, abandoning me in such a state. Breaking off the engagement was unbearable enough, but to think there was someone else he wanted to marry, another woman, and dump me. How much more can he insult me? A boiling anger surged from the depths of my stomach, heating my entire body. Remember this, I won't let this go. I am Tracy Manning, a 45-year-old housewife. I've been engaged to Ben, who is 2 years younger than me, for a year now. I met Ben through my best friend Rachel. He likes sports and dining out, and was a fun person. Being not very articulate myself, I've always been drawn to people who are the opposite of me. When I mentioned losing my parents in an accident in middle school, I found out Ben also lost his father around the same time, and we bonded over this unexpected common ground. Our relationship progressed with the intent to marry, and upon Ben's proposal, we began living together in my house. However, living together revealed Ben's true nature. He was a former soccer player, a large man with a huge appetite. I love tasty food, but since I'm a light eater, I used to enjoy watching Ben's hearty eating when we dined out. Seeing him happily polish off a large steak or pasta was truly satisfying to watch. However, Ben had a disposition that made him unsatisfied unless he'd ate large amounts of food at home as well. Of course, knowing about Ben's big appetite, I was initially happy to prepare plenty of side dishes for him. I worked full-time and often came home later than him due to overtime, but when I returned exhausted, the pot was empty. My dinner had disappeared from the fridge, leaving only shredded cabbage. "Ben, did you eat my share too?" He puffed up his cheeks unhappily as he watched a soccer game. "Yeah, I took it. Mine was too little." I was dumbfounded. 2 beef steaks, a soup full of ingredients, a heap of Caesar salad, and 2 plates of mashed potatoes still weren't enough for him. I swallowed my complaints and reluctantly bought my own dinner at a store. Similar incidents happened several more times, but I disliked confrontations and just prepared another meal instead. In retrospect, perhaps it was wrong of me to accept his behavior without showing my anger. Eventually, Ben's overeating began despite it being just the 2 of us living together. Even if I prepared meals enough for 4 or 5 people, by the time I got home, everything would be eaten. If that wasn't enough, he would eat the cup noodles, frozen food, and even the frozen side dishes I set aside for my lunchbox. Even when I left notes saying, "I have plans for these, please don't eat them," he would ignore them. Furthermore, Ben's overindulgence didn't stop even when we ate together. He would reach over with his fork to snatch meat or fish from my plate. When I protested, he would look at me as if he were confused. "You don't eat much, so I'm doing you a favor." It would be a waste if it went uneaten, right? I was just about to eat that. "Check with me first," I'd say. Sorry. He laughed it off and apologized. But at the next meal, he did the same thing again. Ben had always lived at home and couldn't cook at all. On the other hand, I had been living alone since moving out of my aunt and uncle's house when I graduated from college, so I was in charge of everything from planning meals to shopping and cooking. While I could cook more food considering the preparation and storage in the fridge, there was a limit to how much I could make at once. Naturally, during a health checkup 6 months into our living together, Ben was diagnosed as overweight and with high blood sugar. When I cautioned him to eat less, Ben puffed out his chest. A man should be big. It looks more imposing. Women need to be slim, though. What is that supposed to mean? I was baffled, and Ben smirked and said, "You know, Tracy, it would be embarrassing if you got any fatter. I'll eat for you." Excuse me, I'm actually of average weight. Before I could finish speaking, Ben reached over and scooped up a large portion of a limited edition pudding from a popular store, stuffing it into his mouth before I could stop him. "This pudding is really good. Buy some more, will you?" It's a hassle to queue up, so Tracy, please do it. Without showing any remorse, he left the table with a full smile. As I held back my irritation, his mother called, "Tracy, what time will you be coming home tomorrow?" Me probably after 7:00 p.m., wondering why she asked that. I vented about what had just happened. Then his mother scolded me. "Ben happily eats your terrible cooking. How dare you complain?" But lately, he's been eating all the side dishes. He even rates the food I store at home. When I gently protested, she retorted fiercely, "Ben works hard, so let him eat plenty. You're barely working a decent job anyway," she yelled in a piercing voice and hung up the phone. I sighed and ended the call. As our cohabitation period extended, Ben's arrogance only grew worse. Initially, Ben helped with other household chores besides cooking, but after 6 months, he stopped doing them altogether. "Ben, when I come home late, please bring in the laundry as we agreed before. I'd also like you to clean the bathroom." Ben, lounging on the sofa and fiddling with his phone, replied without looking up, "I'm beat. When I get home from work, I'm hungry too. You should handle that stuff. I'm tired too." We decided this from the start. Ben frowned deeply, cutting off my words. "Stop nagging. I work at a major company and earn more than you do. Besides, you're a woman, you should be able to juggle housework and your job. Everyone else does." Ben would ignore me for days if he got upset. It was always me who had to apologize to end the fights. If I was already feeling uncertain about living with Ben, and another troubling issue arose unexpectedly, my mother-in-law moved in without warning. "I'm home, what?" I was speechless when I entered the living room. Large boxes were piled up in the corner. On the sofa, my mother-in-law sat beside Ben, watching TV and laughing carelessly. My mother-in-law had occasionally popped by before. She came to see Ben, not me. It was unusual to see her car in the parking lot on a weekday. But what was this about? "Oh, Tracy, welcome home. Please make dinner quickly. I'm hungry." "Mother, you're here, Ben." A moment, I beckoned Ben into the hallway and asked, "What's with the boxes?" "It should be obvious. These are my mom's moving boxes from today. We'll be living together, so please be nice. This is so sudden, it's troubling." She raised her voice. "At least you could have discussed it with me first." Ben frowned unhappily as he responded, "It's fine. We were going to live together once we got married anyway, so I had her come over earlier." Hearing our conversation, my mother-in-law, who had just arrived, chimed in. "He's the eldest son. It's common sense. Why do you need your permission?" Ben nodded in agreement with his arms crossed, and I felt utterly disheartened. Once the two of them teamed up against me, there was no winning. That's when the hellish days began. My mother-in-law, as if it were natural, did not do any household chores, and would have me make her coffee, which she would then complain about being too lukewarm or too weak every time. Moreover, she seemed to be bad at cleaning up after herself, leaving empty snack bags and beer cans around, and leaving cardboard boxes from her online shopping orders unattended. She didn't even throw away her trash, so I found myself cleaning up after her all the time despite imposing on us. She didn't pay for groceries or utilities and constantly complained. "Tracy, I heard you told Ben to do the household chores. He's tired from work. Let him relax at home." I work full-time too. I think it's common for working couples to share household duties. When I finally stood up for myself, my mother-in-law's eyes narrowed angrily. "Who do you think you are? Don't act so high and mighty when you earn less than Ben." "That's right, if you want to have an opinion, earn more than me first." With my mother-in-law as a strong ally, Ben's arrogance only increased as we approached the first anniversary of our cohabitation. I regretted not waiting longer to live together before booking the wedding venue, but it was already too late. When he proposed, I was so thrilled that we immediately started visiting wedding venues and hastily booked one. I can hardly imagine having a happy married life with Ben and his mother now. When I introduced Ben to my foster parents, my aunt and uncle, they were as happy as if their own daughter was getting married. If he works at that company, that's reassuring. Ben is such a bright and nice guy. It's daunting to tell my aunt and uncle the truth, but I don't want to miserably resign myself to this situation. I've decided to call off the engagement and cancel the wedding. Just as I made up my mind, I was involved in a traffic accident. Someone called my name, and when I opened my heavy eyelids, I found myself inside an ambulance. An EMT peered into my face. "Can you tell me your name?" "Yes, Tracy Manning," as I spoke. A sharp pain shot through my right cheek, and I couldn't feel my right leg. I could tell it was bent in a strange direction, but I couldn't move it. "We'll be at the hospital soon." I was too groggy to grasp the situation. I should have been asleep in my bed last night, but I woke up in an ambulance. How did this happen? I had completely forgotten that I had gotten up, prepared for work, and ridden my scooter to work. After being rushed to the emergency room and having a CT scan, it was clear I had hit the right side of my head, but thanks to the helmet, there was no damage to my brain. The doctor said my memory confusion should resolve over time. The damage to my leg, however, was severe, with a fracture that would heal in about 2 months, but serious ligament damage. After the surgery on my leg, and once the anesthesia wore off, the doctor came to explain the situation. "Full recovery of your right leg will be difficult," the doctor spoke solemnly. "It is likely that walking on your own will be difficult in the future." As the doctor spoke, everything around me seemed to darken. "Will I be disabled?" I asked in a trembling voice. "Yes, you will likely need to use a wheelchair." Suddenly, the world seemed to lose its color. I stared at my right leg, which was suspended and wrapped in bandages. "By the way, the police have been waiting for a while now. Are you able to speak with them?" "Yes, well, what is it?" "The perpetrator fled the scene, so they're here to pass on that information." Turning to look at the police officers waiting by the door, the doctor then left the room. The 2 officers who came and briefly explained the situation according to witnesses at the scene. "It seems a car with a beginner's mark struck you from the right after hitting. You, the driver, a young woman, just drove away. I see. We will report back as soon as the perpetrator is identified. Take care." After the police left, I cried quietly. Why did this have to happen to me? Did I do something wrong? All I wanted was to work, get married, and be happy. I wanted to cry face down, but it was hard to do so with my legs suspended. Fortunately, there were no vacancies in the general ward, so I was placed in a private room. While sobbing, someone opened the door without knocking. Before the surgery, a nurse had asked if I should contact my family, so I sent messages to my aunt and uncle, a colleague from work, and even Ben to explain my situation. My aunt, uncle, and colleague, who had arrived before the surgery, looked like they were about to cry at the sight of me. I wondered if Ben and his normally cold mother might show some sympathy when faced with my condition. However, my faint hopes were soon shattered. Pointing at my tear-streaked face, Ben burst into laughter. What a hideous face. You were already ugly, but now you're swollen up like a monster. Ben, that's not nice. Tracy is in pain. Even my mother-in-law, who tried to scold him, couldn't help but burst out laughing. So when are you getting out? Hurry up and come back to cook for us. Exactly, that's the only thing you're good for. I felt a surge of anger at their insensitive attitude. I am injured, aren't there better things to say? It looks like I'll be in the hospital for about 2 months. For now, we need to cancel the wedding venue. Who's going to take care of us? I continued facing my mother-in-law's discontent. Also, it looks like I might end up with a disability in my leg. The doctor said I might need to live in a wheelchair. Ben and his mother exchanged glances suddenly, as if remembering something. Ben spoke up, but we'll get a hefty insurance payout from the perpetrator, right? With that money, we can remodel the house and make a killing on the compensation. So even if you can't work, it might be okay. You'll get money even if you don't work. That's great, Tracy. About that, as I hesitated, and then revealed that the perpetrator had fled, they both looked disappointed. Then you're useless, mother-in-law, Ben said. Break up with her. It's a waste to be with such a burden, yeah, really. Their appalling remarks were quickly echoed by Ben. Looking at my mother-in-law, he delivered a shocking line. Mom, I'm actually going to marry Samantha. I kept her around because she cooks well, but I should have dumped her sooner. See, I was right all along. With a triumphant smile, my mother-in-law turned her mean-spirited grin towards me. Then we'll marry another young lady, someone younger, prettier, and more obedient than you. All we have to do is change the name of the bride. There's no problem with the wedding next week. While grinning, Ben looked down at me as I lay in the hospital bed. I'm going to marry a decent wife. I'll break off the engagement with someone who needs care, a defective product. She's not a match for Ben. A defective product should just disappear, crushed by their heartless words. I was too shocked to respond and just watched them leave the room, laughing. Okay, as the silence returned to the hospital room, I stared blankly at the ceiling, vividly recalling Ben and his mother's actions. Although engaged to me, Ben was also seriously involved with Samantha, planning to marry her. As I calmed down, a boiling anger surged from within, heating my entire body. To abandon me in this condition and break off our engagement was unforgivable, let alone that he had someone else he considered his main interest. How much more could he demean me? Remember this, Ben, I will not let this go. Hanging my leg and confined to the hospital room made the day incredibly tough. Thanks to strong painkillers, I could bear the physical pain, but being unable to move freely was very stressful. The daytime was still manageable. I could distract myself by watching TV or browsing comics and videos on my phone. The problem was at bedtime. Unable to move my body, it took a long time to fall asleep, and when I did, I was tormented by nightmares. In the darkness, I tried to run from a ghost, but couldn't move my legs, so I'd crawl away using my arms. Soon, the ghost would catch up and almost attack me before I would wake up, startled, my heart racing, and drenched in sweat. Breathing heavily, I would realize it was just a dream. Trying to sleep again was difficult, and I ended up just idly staring at my phone until morning after having nightmares 2 nights in a row. I talked to a nurse who gave me sleeping pills. Many patients apparently struggle with insomnia due to discomfort and the unfamiliar environment. Following the nurse's advice to take the sleeping pills, I was able to sleep soundly until morning, which relieved some of my distress. While I suffered, Ben was presumably enjoying his new married life. The thought disgusted me, but each time I reminded myself, soon Ben would come begging back. I would have the satisfaction of turning him away. 3 days after the accident, while I was lowering my dinner tray and absent-mindedly looking at my phone, Ben called. Ignoring his initial calls, he kept calling persistently, so reluctantly I answered. "Yes, hey, what's going on?" Ben blurted out without introducing himself. Knowing the reason, I coldly asked, "What do you want?" "A realtor came and told me to leave the house this week," Ben complained. "And why did you sell my car without asking?" "What I do with my own house and car is my business, right?" Hearing this, Ben whined pitifully. "I was planning to move Samantha into that house, and now you're kicking me out all of a sudden." "That's crazy," I sharply dismissed him. "That house was built by my aunt and uncle as a graduation gift. When I started living alone, I planned to keep living there. But if I'm going to be in a wheelchair, it needs major remodeling." "I guess so." Ben finally understands and agrees. "Just because the house is too big, I thought about putting it up for sale and moving to a single-story house." "That's fine, but why are you kicking us out?" Surprised by the question, I couldn't help but yell, "Because you're strangers." "Obviously, we're not strangers, we're ex-Biancas," Ben retorted. "Ah, you're hesitating to call Samantha because you think you'd be in the way." Ben starts talking nonsense. "I don't mind at all. It's a big 3-story house, so you can live on the first floor, Samantha and I on the second, and Mom on the third. That's how we can divide it up, right?" Overwhelmed by the absurdity, I pressed my temples and took a deep breath. "After all, it was you who forcefully proceeded with the idea of living with your mother, wasn't it?" Feeling my irritation swell, I tried to speak calmly. "Even the car, if you barely use it, I'll use it instead. You said and took it for a spin on your own. Don't you think that's presumptuous?" Then Ben suddenly fell silent. After a moment, he muttered softly, "Mom thinks that she bought the car and the house. You should just tell her the truth. What's the point of putting on airs as a family?" As I spoke with mixed astonishment, Ben was taken aback. However, being naturally persistent, he pressed on further. "Hey, please spare me from selling it. Mom likes it here, and if we move, she wants a rental of the same level. It's impossible to find one in a few days. If you're willing to pay a rent of $1,000, I might consider lending it to you." At my suggestion, Ben raised his voice in anger. "Huh, you must be joking. Such a cold woman," he cursed. "Fine, I'll figure it out myself," Ben said irritably, and then hung up the phone. It was around the time when I was allowed to move to a wheelchair with the help of a nurse and got permission to enter the lounge and store. Ben and his mother came for their second visit. I assumed they would be disheartened after being kicked out of the house, but surprisingly they were lively. "Hey, poor man, the swelling on your face has gone down a bit, hasn't it?" Still an ugly face, though, as the two of them teased me. I felt like I was dealing with kindergartners. "Have you finished moving, or are you still living in a hotel?" I honestly didn't care, but I asked anyway, and his mother's face lit up. Ben has a high income, so he found a wonderful apartment quickly. "A new apartment on the 15th floor. The night view is beautiful," she replied excitedly. "That's good to hear," I replied monotonously, and Ben spread a vulgar smile and teased me. "With those legs, you must be out of a job, right? If the perpetrator isn't found, you'll have to pay all the hospital and outpatient fees yourself. If you keep going to the hospital without getting better, it's going to cost a lot." Though I wanted to retort that the high-cost medical system reduces the personal burden, it was too much hassle, so I kept quiet. And his mother's voice became cheerful. "You've always had bad behavior. It's all your own doing. A defective product should just cling to disability benefits and live poor forever." I'm enjoying newlywed life with Samantha. Unlike you, she's obedient to Mom. Even if I eat a lot, she doesn't make a face. She's such a good daughter-in-law. I'm looking forward to grandchildren. If you have no business here, could you please leave? I said wearily, and both his mother and Ben were outraged. We came to visit you, and you're still as unpleasant as ever. That arrogant attitude of yours is your flaw. That's why I broke off our engagement. Without bringing any sweets, they showered me with sarcasm while supposedly visiting me. What kind of visit was that? Just as I was thinking about kicking them out of the hospital room, I heard a knock, and the nurse appeared, looking a bit surprised. Miss Manning, you have a visitor. May I let them in? Wondering who it could be, I nodded to allow them into the room, and a timid-looking young woman in her early 20s appeared behind the nurse. Seeing me with my right leg fixed with a splint in bandages, and my face bearing scars on the right side, she immediately teared up. Oh, what have I done? As soon as she approached the bed, she broke down in tears. Ben and his mother looked at the woman with a puzzled expression. Excuse me, are you the person who was driving during the accident? I asked hesitantly, and the woman, while crying, nodded her head. Yes, I am the perpetrator. The woman stood up and introduced herself between sobs. When I caused the accident, my mind went blank, and I fled. But since then, I've hardly been able to eat or sleep. She spoke through her tears. My mother was very worried about me staying in my room without eating, so when I told her what happened, she scolded me through tears. I wanted to apologize in person before turning myself in, so I came here. The perpetrator knelt on the floor and bowed deeply at the foot of the bed. Raising her voice, she said, I am so sorry for what I've done. Seeing the perpetrator shaking, I replied with a calm voice, Thank you for coming forward. I had thought I would unleash my anger when I faced the perpetrator, but when the time came, the words wouldn't come. Of course, I felt resentment for being left in such a state and felt anger, but seeing her genuine remorse, I couldn't bring myself to berate her. She bowed and then left the room. Ben spoke with a disgusted look. What a bore. She's been hiding all this time, and you would have had to pay out of her own pocket if it continued. Then, the chance of catching a hit-and-run offender is 52%. Apparently, arrests often come from eyewitness reports like license plates. His mother's explanation made Ben's eyes widen. So she would have been caught sooner or later, huh? That's right. Also, apart from compensation, you'll receive the hospital allowance, won't you? You're the beneficiary of the life insurance, after all. Indeed, I had completely forgotten, but I had changed the insurance beneficiary to my fiancé, Ben, when we moved in together. I never thought he would be like this. You can't change the beneficiary when receiving it, so if Tracy processes the insurance claim, it all goes to you, Ben. With a slight grin, his mother handed me a large envelope from the insurance company. You must be bored during your hospital stay, right? You should read this again, Tracy. Thanks. I lucked out with such a generous ex-Bianca. After the cheerful pair left, I looked down at the life insurance documents and chuckled to myself. The following weekend, while chatting with Rachel over bottled tea, the hospital room door suddenly opened. Tracy, you did it, didn't you? Ben flew in with an enraged expression, clutching his cell phone. Hey, a friend is visiting, please. Can this wait? Shut up. Look at this. Rachel and I exchanged glances before peering into the cell phone screen. There was a lengthy, angry message from Samantha. Ben, you were engaged to me, but you were also engaged to Tracy. I can't believe you even lived together. Ah, no, it was Tracy who kept pressuring me, and Ben replied in a flustered manner. The mansion you showed me before was Tracy's house, wasn't it? And the story about living in an apartment because it's being remodeled was a lie too. You big liar. Sorry, Samantha. Please forgive me and smile. I can't trust you or your mother anymore. Ben's apology only added fuel to the fire, and Samantha became even more heated. By the way, who told you all this? That doesn't matter. Also, did you decide to marry me because I'm a nurse, because you thought I'd willingly take care of your mother in the future? Even that information, Ben's confusion was evident from his response. It was true then. I'm not going to be some care worker from now on. That's why I'm divorcing you. I'll stamp the divorce papers and send them, so please submit them to the city office. Wait, I really love you, Samantha. I don't want to break up. The conversation ended there. Ben, showing me the signed divorce papers, yelled at me with a furious expression. It must be your doing. You play dirty. Are you that jealous of my happiness? It was Rachel who burst out laughing, not me. After laughing heartily for a while and wiping the tears from her eyes, she looked at Ben with disdain. I was skeptical when Tracy consulted me, but Ben, you really have a terrible personality. If I had known, I wouldn't have introduced her to you. Ben snapped at Rachel too. It's none of your business. I have something to discuss with Tracy. Just go home. I'm the one who told Samantha, Ben gasped after hearing the details from Tracy. The date of the ceremony and the traits of the spouse matched one of my subordinates. When I checked, it turned out to be true. Rachel stared at Ben with a stern look. It's infuriating to see a valued subordinate made unhappy. So after consulting with Tracy, I revealed everything to her. Surprised by Ben's reaction, I spoke sharply. Samantha is the daughter of a friend of your mother, right? Hasn't she been swallowing all this consideration for her mother and your mother's relationship until now? It's good that she could make a decision quickly. Ben's face twisted in frustration. His neck turned red as he shouted angrily at me. Since when did you have the right to lecture me with your defects? You're just a social burden relying on disability benefits. Rachel blinked in surprise, shrugged, and looked at me curiously, not noticing. Ben's continuing insults. An elite like me got engaged to a plain woman whose only skill is cooking. You should be grateful for the happy times you spent with me. And yet after all the complaints, you ruined someone else's happiness. Want to get sued, huh? Rachel looked at me with a resigned expression. Ben, don't you know about Tracy's background? I mentioned that my family is involved in the medical field, but if I told the real story, it seemed like Ben and his mother would start asking for money. Ah, that makes sense. Both of you, stop your annoying chatter. As Ben was berating us, there was a knock, and the door to the hospital room opened. A dignified man in a suit entered with a polite greeting. I apologize for my late introduction. I have just returned today from a conference in Germany. Yes, I heard about it. It's been a while, Director. As we exchanged greetings, Ben erupted in anger. I was still talking, old man. You should quiet down a bit. Your yelling is audible all the way to the nurse's station through the open door. Chastised in a commanding tone, Ben was at a loss for words. The director glared at him sharply and continued. You've been saying to Miss Manning are unbearable. Do you even know who she is? She's my ex-fiancée, so I can say whatever I want. It's none of your business. The man frowned at Ben's insolent attitude and sighed deeply. If you have a complaint, say it clearly. Don't you know Miss Manning is the chairperson of this hospital? Ben seemed confused for a moment. After a brief pause, he burst into laughter. What are you misunderstanding? She's not a doctor, just a hospital staff member. Even if she's not a doctor, one can become a board member with the governor's approval. The director's words made me smile broadly. Right, I hadn't told Ben, but I inherited the land for the hospital chain from my parents. It's worth about $29 million in total. Ben's mouth agape, Rachel delivered the final blow. Tracy even declined the VIP private room offered to her because she didn't want to show favoritism. Didn't she? Of course, such rooms should be kept available for seriously ill patients. The director beamed with pride. As expected, Miss Manning, that's why the board members respect you so much. Ben, stunned for a while, came to his senses and looked embarrassed. As we were enjoying the conversation, he tried to sneak out of the room, but stopped when his phone rang. "Mom, I'm coming home now." Ben blinked rapidly and suddenly turned pale. As we watched him curiously, he asked me quickly, "Tracy, when will the life insurance be deposited?" "It won't be." "I stopped the process since Ben is the beneficiary," I said. Ben let out a groan of despair and collapsed on the spot. "What happened?" I asked. "My mom charged $50,000 on my card for shopping," he muttered in a fading voice. "She went on a shopping spree for brand goods. She planned to repay it with the life insurance." I laughed in disbelief at such a thing she would do. Then Ben looked up at me with a sly smile. "Hey Tracy, if you have $29 million in assets, you can pay off our debt quickly, right?" As a favor since we were engaged. I was stunned. After all, he had used me and mocked me as a poor defective person. And now he dares to say this. "You have some nerve." I held back an angry Rachel and smiled kindly at Ben. "That's tough, but you're an elite employee, so you should be able to pay off that much debt quickly. Unlike me, a defective, you can work hard so you'll be fine. There's no need for me to help." Ben looked at me with a grimace, unable to retort, and left the room with a slouch, a changed man. The next day, Ben was called by his department head at work and severely reprimanded. Ben's client had proposed canceling a contract. The client had visited the hospital to see a friend the previous day and overheard Ben's abusive rant towards me in the hallway. Disillusioned because the voice was unmistakably BS, they were disappointed. It was a major contract, so the loss was significant, and Ben was demoted and relocated to a regional office as a result. His colleagues treated him coldly after learning the reason for his transfer, and Ben, feeling reckless, quit the company. He now works multiple part-time jobs to pay off the enormous debt his mother created. His mother stayed after arguing with Ben over the debt. With Ben's salary reduced, they couldn't afford the condo's management fees and moved to a shabby apartment. Being poor at keeping things tidy, their room quickly turned into a garbage dump, making them the butt of neighborhood jokes. After driving out Ben and his mother, I had planned to sell the house and move to a single-story home. However, as my leg was healing, I canceled the house sale and decided to continue living there as before. My leg, expected to remain impaired, recovered enough to walk after 3 years of rigorous walking training. Running or squatting causes pain, and long walks are challenging, but I cherish the ability to shop and travel without relying on a cane or wheelchair. The perpetrator of the accident that led to my injuries was arrested for negligent driving causing death, but received a suspended sentence due to visible remorse and opted for a non-prosecution settlement. They surrendered their license and are now living a reformed life. I also received compensation for the broken engagement through a lawyer from Ben. Although I have plenty of money, I insist on collecting it as a matter of principle. Samantha divorced him, and after falling out with his mother, Ben felt lonely and sent me selfish messages like Tracy was the best after all, and let's start over, which I blocked. Getting engaged and cohabiting with such a peculiar person was a complete waste of time. However, through this ordeal, I grew closer to Rachel, and being hospitalized helped me see the strengths and weaknesses of the hospital I oversee. I relayed these findings to the board members, striving to reflect them in my work.